Hello everyone, and welcome back once again to Cosy Reads. I hope you've all been keeping well. Thank you for joining me again for another story. In today's story, we will carry on with the tale of Regalion. As we cut back to Max and Bree, we see the aftermath of their conversation with Scathes, as they are given their next lead and must venture through Regalia. However, they must be careful as powerful forces are scattered throughout Regalia, and they are about to meet one such force. The individual could feel a presence approaching, a powerful one that seemed to be cutting through the trees. There seemed to be multiple of them, however one of them stood out from the rest. He knew straight away that they were Reapers, for they moved in packs, always with a leader, especially a highly trained team like this. Well, there's no point in running. Besides, I'm down for a quick workout. The individual then pulled off his bag and put it on the floor, before proceeding to open the bag, retrieving two gloves. The gloves were metallic, however they seemed to be made from an unusual material, an otherworldly material. Adorning the gloves were crystal-like engravings. On one of the gloves was a lion's head in the centre of the palm, and a bull's head in the centre of the other glove. The other glove was also adorned in crystal-like engravings, with a flower-like pattern running around both gloves, contorting into thorny vines the deeper into the glove they went. The individual himself was a tower of a man, clearing 7 feet with ease. He was an exceptionally muscular man in traveller's garbs, with a cloak that attached itself to one shoulder. The individual had a tanned appearance, with black hair that had been tied back into a ponytail. His eyes were unnaturally red, and he stared with a gaze that could instill fear into fear itself. The presence was getting closer, and the man knew that he had to prepare himself. He breathed in and out slowly, calming his mind before slamming his gloves together, which sent an echo throughout the forest, shaking the trees and clearing out all of the animals. "Whoa, was that him?" a Reaper member asked her superior as they closed in on their target. "Yeah, don't get distracted now," the superior replied without breaking gaze from a head-on position. The individual with the gloves then watched as his gloves grew in power and size to where it seemed that his hands were now far too small for the gloves. This, however, was not the case, as the individual lifted his hand with no effort and threw a few punches in the air. Still got it. He then looked up as the Reapers appeared from the trees, all raiding attacks from different directions. The individual then thrust out his hand as fast as he could, creating a fist that blasted out a current of wind, forcing the closest members to him to redirect themselves. The hit did not connect, but it was enough to break through the trees behind those Reapers, creating a sort of chasm behind them. The others then engaged, however the individual, as big as he was light enough on his feet that he was able to dodge their attacks as well as retaliate with a few of his own. This forced the Reapers to back off and take a more calculated approach. "Hector, is it? Wow, you sure are bigger than I initially thought. Look, I know that you're not going to listen to what I'm about to say," the leader of the Reaper pack spoke. "Just shut up and ready yourselves. I haven't got all day. I'm not about to give you guys a chance to get in my head and persuade me not to fight," Hector replied with a burning anger in his eyes. Before the leader of the pack even had a chance to react, Hector was in front of him with his right hand outstretched in a fist. The leader quickly moved, almost disappearing in how fast he was. He reappeared on a tree to the side, only just realizing that he was not Hector's target. Boom! Hector, using his left hand, sucker punched another Reaper in the gut, sending them flying towards the trees. "Ha, got him," Hector said, putting his hands up in a boxer stance ready to fight. The leader quickly mobilized, catching his team member before they hit the tree. "We do not have time to lament over our wounds. If you're able to fight, then fight. If not, then run, the leader said. Right, sir, the Reaper member replied, before getting up and brushing themselves off. Their stomachs still ached, but they believed in the idea that they were a Reaper, and Reapers do not go down so easily. The Reaper then turned to Hector, stating, "My name is Zazel, a Reaper Elite, and this is my squadron. I have been charged to go after you. The only reason why I'm telling you this is that you'll be either leaving here with us in chains, or the more fun option, in a body bag, just clinging to whatever sliver of life I decide to leave you in," Zazel said with a smirk on his face. This change in atmosphere caused two of the Reapers closest to Hector to gain immense amounts of bravado. They both charged Hector with blinding speed, forcing him to only have a millisecond to react. They were able to hit Hector with a combined force of a raging locomotive. They both went for kicks, pushing Hector back before pulling out their daggers, and as if in sync, leaping over Hector and slicing his arms, and seemingly cutting his gloves, before being stopped completely in their tracks. Hector laughed as he held the two Reapers in his hands by their heads. He then moved with the ferocity of the animals that his gloves showcased, slamming the Reapers into the ground and ending their charge. The hit was catastrophic, creating two ditches in the ground where their heads were, leaving them bleeding all over. One knocked out by the sheer force of impact, while the other barely hung on to consciousness. The dazed Reaper looked up, not seeing a man, but instead seeing a savage beast, as a feeling worse than fear washed over him. The Reaper knew fear, for he had faced an alpha daemon before while working under Zazel. However, this feeling felt far worse. With the alpha daemon, he could justify the fear, as a daemon looked like a monster, but this individual was human. That's what instilled the feeling into the Reaper, a human with ungodly, monstrous, unbound power. The Reaper in that moment accepted death, because there was nothing else to do. Hector then threw them both in the air, and with the force of a tsunami, punched them both, sending them hurling at extreme breakneck speeds towards the forest. Zazel didn't have time to catch them, as Hector wanted to make sure that they knew he was serious. He hit the individuals so hard that within a second, they appeared in front of two trees, and then they had gone through those trees, reappearing behind them. The duo had been smashed through multiple trees before finally, the multiple impacts had brought them to a halt, sprawled out on the floor, neither of them moving. The other Reapers still left standing looked at their fallen comrades, and then at Hector. Fear started to creep its way into them. It seems now I have more of a reason to annihilate you. You've just wasted your chance of leaving here fully intact, Zazel said without breaking gaze with Hector. This caused fear to abandon the two members as they saw their leader not afraid, but instead poised and ready, not only to carry out orders, but to also avenge their teammates. They both drew their weapons, ready to attack. They knew the battle formation, and knew that they needed to follow it now more than ever. Moving as swiftly as the wind, the unit moved into position, one taking the left side, the other taking the right, with the leader taking the middle. Hector quickly put his hands into a protective formation, ready to strike when the opportunity arose. However, with only a sliver of time to react, Zazel had appeared next to him, and then behind him, cutting his cheek. Hector was able to block a more serious attack, but just barely. Hector then smiled, a malicious and sadistic smile, stating, "I'm going to have fun with this guy. No doubt about it." After conversing with Scathes, Max and Co decided that it would be best to meet up with Scarlet and Jezebel. They received word that Jezebel was with Scarlet, and an idea of their location. However, Max knew why Scarlet couldn't relay their actual position. This prompted them to move to the location by foot, once they had gotten the general area. It also gave them a chance to look into the situation that Scathes had identified. "I sense powerful energies clashing. It may be of importance to find out who they are. However, I would deeply advise on caution. I cannot pinpoint where exactly the confrontation is, but I know of its general area, for I can sense weapons of mass destruction being used." Max remembered Scathes explaining. Immediately he knew that she was referring to the Godforsaken. This was news that they needed to hear. Even though it was dangerous to confront the Godforsaken, they needed the help in the coming war. As they travelled, Max explained to Bree the severity of the situation that they were about to end up in. "Look, I know that this is going to be extremely dangerous, but I need to be here. You already said it yourself. I can't stay on my own, not now, and also I may be needed here with you guys," Bree responded to Max's concern. "You're right. Plus, it also allows us to retrieve that weapon we spoke about with Scathes," Max replied. They travelled by train for the first half of their journey, before exiting the train and travelling by foot for the rest of the way. They reached what seemed to be a forest-type area, as this is where Scathes had identified the energy signature coming from. Max told Bree to be on her guard and stay behind him. Celeste was also poised, ready to materialise when the need arose. Butrid was resting, lazing about in his lantern, but he was also on alert, for he could also sense the energy signature coming from the combatants. They ventured deeper into the forest, trying to pinpoint where exactly the fighting was taking place. They would hear occasional sounds of what seemed like weapons clashing, but the sounds were faint and hard to pick out their exact location. Where are they? I mean, this forest is big, but it can't be that hard to miss a godforsaken in combat, right? Bree questioned, while constantly looking around where the fighting could be taking place. Before Max had a chance to respond, they heard a loud bang that seemed like an explosion. They quickly turned around to the sound of trees collapsing, giving away the fighter's location. Neither of them needed to say anything. They both knew what that sound was. They quickly mobilized, Bree staying behind Max, but also watching their rear to ensure that they were not ambushed from behind. As they got closer, they heard more indications of a fight, and then they saw the mess. The air seemed thicker here, as if even Mother Nature herself was hesitant to intervene, as collapsed trees were strewn across the forest. Looking deeper, they saw two reapers passed out. One was hanging from a tree, looking pretty beat up, with their torso exposed through their shredded uniform. A huge fish-shaped mark was visible on the reaper's torso, and their arm was contorted in an unpleasant way, most likely from the impact from hitting the tree. The other was also in a similar situation, lying in a hole in the tree, most likely created from his impact on the tree. Both reapers looked like they had been in a battle. Their injuries seemed severe, and the force from whatever had hit them seemed to have done a number on them. Max tried to discern whether the impact from the trees was worse than the actual hit from whatever had attacked them. Max and Bree quickly hid behind some shrubbery. They watched the reapers to try and discern whether they were dead or simply unconscious. Max then snuck around and approached the reapers. Using a rock, he threw it carefully, so that it would bounce off the reaper's hand without hitting anything else that could create noise. The reaper did not move, and Max used this opportunity to get closer. He then pulled out his dagger and slowly approached the reaper. Once close enough, he then moved swiftly but silently, approaching and putting his dagger to the reaper's throat. He made sure to always have the other reaper in his line of sight. He then checked for any signs of breathing, ascertaining that the individual was just unconscious. With rasped breathing, it seemed that their insides had taken a beating. He was lucky to be alive. As a result, Max thought it best to leave the two here, but not before tying them up. Having cut off a piece of rope from his bag, he tied the reapers to the trees they were on, to make sure that the enemy would at least be down 2 members. "Wow, this is insane. They look beat up. Are we sure that we're not fighting a juiced up bear or something?" Bree said while looking over the 2 people. She examined their torsos, surprised at what could have hit them with such ferocity. The fact that they were in this state was enough to make her rethink whether it was a good idea to be heading towards whatever caused this. But then she quickly composed herself. She remembered that she was the one who approached Max, so she did not have the option of being too scared to move forward now. If this was what they needed to do, then she would do it without hesitation. Max was silent. He didn't respond. Instead, he looked ahead further into the forest, his body trembling with excitement. He could feel the tension in the air, enough that every fibre of his being felt like it had been awoken from some sort of slumber. It was as if his time, retired, had almost dulled his senses, but now faced with a powerful opponent, his body and mind were more than ready to get back in on the action. They moved closer into the forest, Bree following behind Max. Celeste was ready and waiting. She was more concerned with protecting Bree and Max, but even she felt a shudder of excitement. almost as if her time with Max had caused her to enjoy the thrill of the fight. Max was carrying Butrid's lantern in his bag. The lantern took up a lot of space, but it was better to bring him along than leave him behind. And besides, Butrid would have opposed missing out on such an exciting fight. The closer they got, the louder the sounds of a fight could be heard, and the more the devastation presented itself. Max and Bree moved ever more silent now, knowing that they were reaching the lion's den, and they didn't want to provoke the lion just yet. Boom! From out of nowhere, a mass of compressed air came whizzing past them, almost knocking Bree over. Max had to quickly grab her and keep her steady. What the hell was that? Oh my gosh, did you see that? What was that? I could have been ripped to shreds. Bree stammered, looking behind herself at the now empty space where a tree once stood. Thanks for catching me. I could have ended up like those reapers, and we're not even fighting whatever that thing is yet. Bree gathered herself, and having composed herself, she then got ready to carry on moving forward. Be careful. That's all I can say, Max replied, not breaking gaze from the area in front of them. And that brings chapter 15 of the story to an end. I hope you have all been enjoying the series. As our heroes reach the clearing and come face to face with whatever being caused the devastation in the forest, different emotions run through their bodies. Excitement, anticipation, fear, and uncertainty grip our heroes, with the fear of the unknown being an ultimate fear that our heroes will have to overcome. But until then, I hope you have all sufficiently warmed up and that this story has brought you some level of comfort. I wish you safe travels on the journey of life, and feel free to come back again whenever you need a new story to warm your day.